What's going on, guys? Seth here from Team Union Seth, and I'm here with my draft analysis for my first league, our little friends league. It doesn't exactly have a name just yet, but this is the sixth season that we've done this. So the first season we actually didn't complete. The second and third seasons I won the whole league, and then the fourth and fifth seasons I came in, I think, third in both of them. So we're now in our sixth season. My team is called the West Side Weaviles. So let's get on into this. So a little bit about the league. For the rules, basically for the draft, we did a GBA type style draft. So it was an open draft, it was a tiered draft, and everything like that. So we were required to have one tier 1 mon, one tier 2 mon, 2 tier 3 mons, 2 tier 4 mons, and a tier 5 mon, as well as 1 mega. So after all that was completed, we had 400 free points to spend across four different mons. So we could use the free points at any time, we could and things like that. So we had to hit those requirements throughout the draft, and we also had those 400 free points to spend. So the point cost per tier, if you wanted a tier 1, it would cost you 150 points. If you wanted a tier 2, it would cost you 120 points. A tier 3 costs 80, tier 4 60, and tier 5 40. The way we also did it was if you drafted a lower tier mega, you would get points back, basically. So if you drafted a mega from tier 1, you wouldn't get any points back. If you drafted a mega from tier 2, you got 40 points back. Tier 3, you got 60 points back. And tier 4, you got 80 points back. So last thing, once our drafts were completed, we had to pick one unlimited Z user. So basically they could use attacking Z moves, defensive Z moves, whatever. And then one offensive Z user, which could only use attacking Z moves. So moving on, my first pick was Landorus Therian. I believe we had 12 coaches, 12 teams in the league, and I think I had the 10th pick. So my first pick was Landorus Therian. I was honestly a little surprised it dropped this low, but I was super happy to get it. I really planned to get Landorus and based a lot of my team around this. So some of his key strengths: it has Intimidate, which is phenomenal. It's a powerful Z user. It is one, I did make it my unlimited Z user. It gets Stealth Rock, which is actually good. It actually ends up being the only Stealth Rocker I have on my team, which isn't great, but it's still a really good Rocks user. It has a pretty good speed tier at 91 base speed, so it can outspeed some of those base 80s, 85s, and 90s, but doesn't quite hit that 95 or 100 speed. And it can run a lot of different sets, so it's very versatile. It can be defensive, offensive, Z, setup, everything like that. So some different items that it can run. Like I said, it has the Z crystal, so it can run Groundium Z with Earthquake. It can have the Rockyon Z for rock moves, things like that. It also gets the Flyinium Z for Z Fly, which is also very powerful. Choice Scarf is a very popular set. This thing does outspeed a lot in the metagame with the Scarf. Leftovers and Rocky Helmet are more for defensive sets, because that Intimidate also is super good when running this defensive. So some options it has for moves: it has Earthquake, it has Fly, U-Turn, Knockoff, Superpower. Those are very common attacking moves you'll see, the most common ones pretty much. It also gets Explosion, Smackdown, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, and then it gets Rocks, Defog, Swords Dance, Rock Polish, and Toxic. So pretty decent move pool. It has a lot of good moves to hit a lot of things, especially when running it defensively. Knockoff and U-Turn are super good for defensive attacking moves, Rocks, and then I believe this generation it got Defog. So moving on, my next pick was the Kyram. So I went with normal Kyram, and it has very high attack and special attack, so I'm pretty sure they're both base 130. It does have a better special move pool, so that's typically what you see. It has a good speed tier at 95, so base 95 does outspeed a lot of common bulkier threats. And it has a very diverse move pool, so it has a lot of different moves it can choose from. So some potential items it can run: Choice Scarf and Choice Specs are very popular just for some extra power, extra speed. At its speed tier, it's a very good Scarfer. Like I said, for Landorus, it outspeeds a lot of the higher speed mons in the metagame. Life Orb makes it super powerful. Life Orb makes those hits, the Ice Beams Dracos hit super duper hard. Leftovers for maybe like a sub Roost set. And then Assault Vest I throw on there just because it's a legendary, so all its stats are going to be pretty decent, at least for the most part. So it could definitely run some sort of bulky Assault Vest variant. So move options, like I said, its move pool is pretty diverse. It gets Ice Beam, Earth Power, Flash Cannon, Focus Blast, Draco Meteor, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, Dragon Pulse, Psychic. Gets all the hidden powers, obviously, and then some of its physical moves would be Outrage and Headbutt, Iron Head, Stone Edge, and then, like I said before, it gets Substitute and Roost. So moving on, my first Tier 3 Mon was Chestnut. So some of its key strengths: it has very good physical bulk, it is a very good wall, physically defensive wall. It does also have a pretty diverse move pool. It has a wide array of moves that it can choose from. It has a very good attack stat, so making it not too much of a passive defender. It can definitely fire back with some hard hits. It gets spikes, which is really, really good. So like I said, Landorus was my only stealth rocker. I also do have spikes on this thing. And it does get reliable recovery with Synthesis, and it also has the Leech Seed, which you will see a little bit later. Some potential items to run on it: it gets Leftovers and Rocky Helmet for defensive sets. You can also run a Citrus Berry with a Belly Drum set. So Belly Drum, bring it down, get that Citrus Berry up. You could run one of the 50% berries as well. Life Orb and Choice Band for some more offensive sets. If you didn't want to run the Belly Drum, you could run like a Bandit with Wood Hammer, or things like that. So moving on to its moves, like I said, it is pretty diverse. So it gets Seed Bomb, Leech Seed, Synthesis, Earthquake, Drain Punch, Spikes, Spiky Shield. Like I mentioned before, Belly Drum. It also gets Bulk Up for some more setup. Focus Punch, which could be pretty cool. You could run like a sub Focus Punch set. Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, Poison Jab, Power Up Punch. Stat Power Up Punch is actually pretty cool. Rock Slide, Shadow Claw, Stone Edge, like I said before, Substitute, Superpower, Swords Dance, Thunder Punch, and Wood Hammer. So you could end up even running like a Life Orb Swords Dance set or something of that nature. So it doesn't just have Belly Drum to set up, it does have that Bulk Up and Swords Dance as well. Moving on, my next Tier 3 pick was Jolteon. Some key strengths for Jolteon: has an excellent speed tier at 130, so it outspeeds a lot, most things generally. It has a really good special attack stat at base 110, so its Volt Switches and Thunderbolts are going to be hitting really well. It does get momentum, like I said, with that Volt Switch, which is really good, and I love momentum with my playstyle. It's one of my favorite ways to play. And it does get that Volt Absorb, so it is an electric immunity right there. Some items that it can potentially run: it's got the Choice Specs, the Life Orb, the Expert Belt, all for more offensive sets. Choice Specs hits like a truck with this thing. Life Orb's good if you want to have that extra power, but also switch up your moves. And an Expert Belt if you don't really want to take that recoil. It can also run Leftovers, so it can also run some sort of substitute set, or just maybe a little bit of bulkier set. Moving on for its move options, it doesn't have a whole lot of options when it comes to moves. Why, something Jolteon just does really well is hitting super hard with its electric move. So if my opponent doesn't have a ground type, or doesn't have a good ground type for that matter, electric immunities, Jolteon is definitely going to be able to hit super hard and help you out a lot there. So Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, Hidden Power, those are like the main 5 that you'll see shifted around or mixed up in its sets. It also gets Discharge if you want to try for some Paralysis. Quick Attack for a little bit of priority if necessary. Thunder Wave, Toxic, Substitute, and it does get Heal Bell, so running something like that could be kind of cool. My Tier 4 pick, my first Tier 4 pick was Aromatisse. I was actually really, really happy with this pick. I really like Aromatisse. It's very bulky. And even though its stats aren't super great, it still ends up being very bulky. It has a lot of HP, and it does get Wish, which you will see in a little while. So, great bulk. It is a fairy type, so it gives me that dragon immunity. Passes pretty fat wishes. It gets reliable recovery. And it is a cleric, so it does get the Heal Bell and Aromatherapy. So, that's an awesome plus. Some items that are typically run on it, Leftovers and Rocky Helmet, are more for defensive sets, which you typically see Aromatisse, but also could potentially run Choice Specs or even Life Orb if I do decide to run it offensively, because it does have a decent special attack stat. Some options for moves: we have Moonblast, Wish, Protect, Toxic, and Aromatherapy. Those are typically the 5 you're going to see on its sets. It mostly runs Moonblast for attacking, and then some sort of mix of Wish, Protect, Toxic, or Aromatherapy. But it also does get Calm Mind, so it can set up. It gets Calm Mind and Nasty Plot to set up. It gets some coverage moves like Energy Ball, Flash Cannon, Psychic, Thunderbolt, Hidden Power. It also gets Light Screen and Reflect. It gets Magic Code to maybe bounce back some hazards. It gets Substitute, and it also does get Trick Room, so it does give me a Trick Room option if I'd like it. My next tier 4 pick was Bombbe. So some key strengths, it does give me Sticky Webs. So it gives me an option for Sticky Webs, which could actually be really, really good, especially with the Landorus, the Kyram, and some of the slower mons I have on my team. It is a setup sweeper, so it does get Quiver Dance. It also gets Calm Mind, but there's really no reason to run that if you have the Quiver Dance. It is another Fairy type, so another Dragon immunity. It's always good to have at least one Fairy type, if not 2 on your team. It has a great speed tier, so it hits 124 base speed, which is kind of weird and a little awkward to build around, which is actually pretty cool. So some items you typically see is a Focus Sash, typically on a lead set. If it's going to set up webs, it could also potentially be run on a setup set, though. Life Orb and Choice Specs are also some options for it. Some moves that it gets. So I mentioned the Sticky Web before. Moonblast and Bug Buzz are its main stab moves. Like I said, it gets Quiver Dance, Hidden Power. It also gets Aromatherapy and Defog, which are awesome. Energy Ball and Psychic for some more coverage. Stun Spore, Substitute, Tailwind's really cool. Trick to potentially trick a Choice Scarf for specs, and it also gets U-Turn for momentum. So my tier 5 pick ended up being Regice. I really like this thing because it has really, really good special defense, and it also does have a pretty diverse move pool. So some items that you'll typically see are Leftovers, is mainly the one item that you'll see on this thing a lot. You can also run a Chesto Berry for a Resto Chesto set, and then Life Orb and Choice Specs if you want to get a little cheeky and run some sort of offensive set with this thing. So, like I said, it does have a pretty diverse move pool. It gets the Ice Beam and Thunderbolt, are its main coverage moves that you'll typically see. It also gets Ice Punch, Rest, Sleep Talk, Curse, Rock Polish, Rock Slide, Signal Beam, Substitute Toxic, Earthquake, Explosion, Flash Cannon, Focus Blast, Hammer Arm, Hidden Power, Iron Head, Power Up Punch, Super Power, Thunder Punch, and Thunder Wave. So it does get some decent passive moves like Thunder Wave and Toxic, as well as Substitute. It gets the Rest, Sleep Talk. It also gets Curse. So one set you'll see a lot is like Rest, Sleep Talk, Curse, and Ice Punch. It also gets set up with Rock Polish, which is pretty cool. So those are all definitely some options you can run. My first free pick is the Scizor in Tier 2. So Scizor is really, really awesome and really powerful, and it's something that I was really looking to draft. I've never used Scizor in Draft League format before, so I'm really excited to use this thing and to see how it goes. It does have stab priority with the Bullet Punch, and it also gets boosted from Technician. It has a great typing, being only weak to Fire, so it's a very good defensive typing, and Steel is an awesome offensive typing. It gets Momentum in U-Turn, which is also stab, so those hit super duper hard, and it does have a great attack stat. So some items you'll typically see, we have the Life Orb and the Choice Band, as well as an Iron Plate for some offensive sets. So Choice Banded Bullet Punches hit unbelievably hard. Life Orb if you want to be able to switch up moves, and then Iron Plate if you don't really want to take the recoil. Powers up those Bullet Punches quite a bit as well. You could also run Leftovers and even potentially a Rocky Helmet for some defensive sets. Some of the moves it gets, Bullet Punch and U-Turn, are pretty much staples on Scizor. It gets Bug Bite if you want to run a setup set and you don't want to run U-Turn on it. Gets Swords Dance to set up. Gets Roost and Defog for some more defensive sets. Superpower, Knockoff, Acrobatics for some coverage. Agility, Iron Head, Pursuit is also really good. That has a lot of potential, especially against some of those Ghost types and Psychic types. Substitute, Tailwind, and Toxic for some more utility. So, moving on, my next pick from, I believe it was Tier 4, was Silvally. So, in our league, we determined that you can get all the types of Silvally, so I got all the types of Silvally. So, I can change it up, I can mix it up week to week. It does have a very wide move pool as well, and it does get momentum in U-Turn and Parting Shot. So, typically you'll see it running a memory. Unless I'm running Silvally normal, it'll be running some sort of memory for that type. It can run pretty much any of the choice items. It has base 95 across the board, so it can run physical, physically offensive, especially offensive, defensive, especially defensive, whatever. And then Leftovers, just again, if I run that normal Silvally and want some more bulk. So it has a lot of different moves to choose from, as you guys can see on here. Parting Shot and U-Turn for momentum. It does a lot of coverage moves. It also gets Defog, so it can remove hazards for me. It gets Thunder Wave and Toxic for some utility. It gets, Thunderbolt for coverage, Flash Cannon, Flamethrower. Gets Ice Beam. Gets a lot of different stuff, so you can kind of look through that. Moving on, my next pick from, I believe it was also Tier 4, is Incineroar. So I was really, really excited about this thing. I really love Incineroar, especially now that it has Intimidate. So it has a great offensive typing. Fire and Dark are both awesome offensively. It has very balanced stats, just because it is a starter mon, so all of them typically do have very balanced stats across the board. So it can be run physically, specially, bulky, whatever. It does get momentum with U-turn, and it gets priority in Fake Out. So some items typically seen. Assault Vest is no doubt the most common item seen on Incineroar, but it also has some other options with the Life Orb, Leftovers, Choice Band, or Choice Scarf. Move options. So this thing has a very diverse move pool because it is starter mon. It gets a lot of different things. Knockoff, Fire Punch. So basically Stab, Fire, and Dark moves are super popular. Mainly what you'll see on this thing. U-turn for that momentum. It also does get Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, Taunt, those kind of things for some utility. It also gets Nasty Plot. So it does have some setup options. Nasty Plot's pretty cool. It also gets Bulk Up for the physical side and Swords Dance as well for the physical side. So some cool options there. And my last free pick in Tier 1 was Terrakion. So I was really excited about Terrakion. It lasted very late in the draft. I think this might have been actually my last pick in the draft. It has really, really good offensive typing. It is my offensive Z user, so I can run Fightinium Z, Rockyon Z, Groundium Z, anything like that, even like Poisonium Z. It has a great speed tier at 108, so this thing is really, really powerful. I'm extremely excited to use this Terrakion. Some items you typically see on it: Focus Sash to potentially run a Rock Lead, Choice Scarf, Choice Band for some awesome power or extra speed. Life Orb is very popular as well, and then like I had mentioned before, it has the ability to run Z Crystals on my team. So some move options: Close Combat, Stone Edge, Earthquake, Poison Jab, Iron Head are typically what you'll see in terms of attacking. It does get Swords Dance, which is awesome to set up, as well as Rock Polish for some extra speed. Quick Attack for a little bit of priority if necessary. It does get Rocks, as I mentioned, and it does get some extra coverage with Scizors and Headbutt, and even Rock Slide if you want to run that instead of Stone Edge. So I'm super excited for Terrakion. I can't wait to see what this thing is going to do. It's just super powerful, and I honestly can't believe it lasted this long in the draft. So the last mon on my team is my Mega Pokemon, which was Mega Slowbro. So this was in Tier 3 for the Megas, so it did give me 60 extra points back, which allowed me to get some awesome free mons with the Terrakion and the Scizor. But I really, really wanted Mega Slowbro to kind of round out my team. This thing is super bulky. It has a great defensive typing. Its defensive stats are insane. It has base 180 defense, and with its water psychic typing, that's ridiculous. Reliable recovery in Slack Off and the Regenerator before it Mega Evolves. So typically what I plan on doing is keeping it regular Slowbro for a while to use that Regenerator as long as I can, and then if I want to set up or I want extra power or extra defense, I can Mega Evolve into Mega Slowbro and get that Battle Armor. It also has great move coverage, so it has a lot of different typings of moves, a lot of different coverage if I do want to set up and sweep, and looking for different coverage moves against other teams. So the item has to run the Slowbro Knight. I can only run Mega Slowbro. I can't run regular Slowbro, which obviously that's why I drafted this thing, so I'm looking forward to that. Its move options: it gets Scald, Ice Beam, Psychic. Those are the three kind of mainstays on it, but it also does get Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, gets Focus Blast, Grass Knot, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, so some awesome coverage. It gets set up with Calm Mind, which is really good. Like I said, reliable recovery and Slack Off. It gets utility with Disable, Thunder Wave, Toxic. It gets both screens, Magic Coat. It also gets Trick Room. So I do have a couple of Trick Room options if I want to run that. So there is definitely some potential there. So that is my team. That is the West Side Weaviles for Season 6 of our little Friends League going on. So as you can see, this is the team. I'll go over it real quick. We have from left to right Aromatisse, Mega Slowbro, Regice, Bombbe, Terrakion, Landorus Therian, Kyram, Incineroar, Sovali, Scizor, Jolteon, and the Chestnut. So super excited for this team. This is probably the favorite team I've ever drafted. Like I said, this is my 6th season, my 6th time doing a draft league. And like I said, this is probably my favorite team that I've ever drafted. I feel like it's really balanced. It's really, really good. It has a good mix of offense and defense. It has some powerful mons. It has some very bulky mons. And overall, it's just a very well-rounded team. So I'm super excited to use this. And that is it for this draft analysis. Please let me know what you guys think. If there's anything that I missed or anything you guys would like to see, anything like that. You will see some more team builders and battles with this team, so get excited for that. I know I'm super excited for this season and to use this awesome team. So I'll let you guys go, and I'll see you guys in the next one.